Welcome to my attempt to share how special my new hometown of Washington is. I apologize for my mispronunciation of some of the names, especially Stop 8, which is pronounced Shivers. From talking with some of our local historians, I have discovered some of the information is not correct, so please understand I was going off the information on our tour map. Over my 2-day adventure, I saw many other locations I hope to know more about, along with making time to read all the plaques in town, and maybe one day I'll attempt to make a virtual tour of our great outdoor locations. I hope you enjoy this simple virtual tour. Please come visit our local house museums. Callaway Plantation, open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5. Washington History Museum, open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5. And come say hi to me at the Robert Toombs House, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4, reopening this June. While exploring the outdoors in Washington, Georgia, you discover that the tree-lined streets begin to tell a story. As you stroll through the historic neighborhoods filled with antebellum homes, museums, and parks, the story further unfolds. With more antebellum homes per capita than any other city, the beauty of Washington is a pure joy. The story whispers to you softly as you follow the walking tour map to more than 73 historic sites. And without warning, you slip under its spell of legends and realize that you are visiting not just another place, but rather another era. Welcome to Washington, Wilkes, Georgia. This is the first stop, the Mary Willis Library, built in 1888. The first free public library in the state of Georgia. It was a gift from Dr. Francis T. Willis in memory of his daughter, and is the oldest library building still used as a library in the state of Georgia. It was the first free public library. Number 2 on our stop is the Nisa Norman Hodgkin's house, circa 1790. It's said that across the door, which I don't know which door, is the original iron brackets for a bar put there in 1830 to keep wandering Indians out. Interesting area of the town of 1- and 2-story Victorian cottages. Number 2. Number 3 on our stop is the Osborne Bounds Barnett House. The wrought iron balcony is from the old Georgia State Bank building that used to sit on our town square. The Pines, number 4 on our stop, built in 1818. It's the second house on the right beyond Hospital Drive and is also known as the Deering Hearn House. 5 on the stop is Brook Hill, now known as Chantilly, circa 1820. It stands near the site of the famous Mineral Springs, which Spring Street is named for. Number 6, the Lincoln Bounds House, circa 1800, is 2 of Wilkes County houses moved to the present location by Osborne Bounds Jr., father of the present-day owners. Number 7, continue to the next intersection and turn left onto Andrew Drive. A short distance to the left is a marker showing the birthplace of Bishop James Osgood Andrew, 1794. There is a circle you can drive around the marker and head back to the intersection and turn right on Spring Street. Go past the hospital and turn right onto Cedar Street. Go 2 blocks and turn left on South Alexander Avenue. Number 8 on our stop of historic Washington Wilkes is the Shivers House, circa 1809. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but Thomas Hawley Shivers, a well-known author, was a friend of Edgar Allan Poe, but later charged Poe with plagiarizing his poem The Raven after reading Shivers to Allegra, Florence in Heaven. Down the street from the Shivers House is the Hogue House, circa 1800. It has hand-pegged framing cut with the adze and hand planed. Continuing up the street on Alexander are some more beautiful homes. We come to stop number 10, Hollyhock. It's on the right. It's one of Washington's traveling houses, which means it was relocated from another property. The oldest section of the house is circa 1800, moved from the country. General Braxton Bragg used it as his headquarters here during the last cabinet meeting of the Confederacy at the end of the war between the states. It's number 10, Hollyhock. Two doors down the street from Hollyhock is the old manse, circa 1828. It served as the manse for the Presbyterian Church. Reverend Francis Goulding, who invented a sewing machine that never got patented, later wrote a children's book. He first centered around the life of a little girl from Washington in Little Josephine. 12 on our stop is Holly Court, circa 1825. This house is actually two homes hooked together. It has some interesting history with the original builders. This is where Mrs. Jefferson Davis and her children stayed in 1865 while waiting for President Davis's arrival in Washington, Wilkes for the last cabinet meeting of the Confederacy. It is said she left about 12 hours before he arrived in town, and it took him a couple of days to catch up with her on the trail before being captured by Union troops. Number 13 on our stop is the Robertson Colley House, 1810. It's one of the older homes moved from the country. The sign on the plaque on the gate says it was located 9 miles west near Beaver Dam Creek. The wrought iron fence around the property once encircled the Confederate monument on our town square. 14 on our stop is the Beasley Trebourne House, 1817. Allegedly, portion of this house was a wing from the Robert Toombs house, number 23, moved to make a home for a newly married member of the family. Right next door is number 15, the Norris House, 1814. It was originally built as a one-story for John C. Leitner. I might be pronouncing the name wrong. The second story was added when the Wingfields bought it in 1835. A most interesting owner was David Cotting, Georgia's radical Secretary of State during the Reconstruction years. The next stop, you will turn left on Liberty Street. Continuing our walking tour of historic Washington, Wilkes, Georgia, we come to Retreat, the Campbell Griggs Aiken home, 1800. Built by Duncan Green Campbell and erected on the site of Miss Dugas's boarding school for girls. Andrew G. Sims bought the house up to its present standing without the colonnade, which was added in the 1850s by Aaron A. Cleveland. Completely restored by its current owners, and is a National Landmark property. Across the street is the Masonic Lodge, 1881. First built as a Methodist church. At the time the Masons bought the building, there was no second floor. They were given a special dispensation, the first time permission had ever been granted to meet on the first floor. Continue to the corner and turn right onto Jefferson Street, 1 block, and turn right on East Robert Toombs Avenue just through the light. Stop 18 is Hill House, Slayton House, built in 1814. Mrs. Sarah Hill House was one of the first women newspaper editors in the Southeast. Stop 19 is the Presbyterian Church, 1825. It is the oldest standing church in this building in the city. The congregation was formed in 1790. Stop number 20 is the Episcopal Church of the Mediator, constructed in 1896. Featuring cobalt blue windows executed by Wilbur Burham. It is now under complete renovation. 21 is the Toombs Anderson House, built in 1820 as a wedding gift from Sarah Hill House to her granddaughter and namesake. The ancient magnolia trees were planted by Gabriel Toombs, the brother of General Robert Toombs. 22 is Old Castle, built in 1820 just outside the city limits, purchased by Isaiah Tucker Irvin II in 1851. While serving as Speaker of the State House of Representatives, he drowned after an explosion on the ship off the coast of Galveston, Texas in 1860. The Wilkes Guard, which he commanded, then changed its name to the Irvin Guards. The house later entered the Dyson family and has been in the Dyson family for several generations. Stop 23 is the Robert Toombs House. Begun in 1797 as a cottage built by Dr. Joel Abbott and greatly enlarged and renovated in his time. General Robert Toombs purchased it in 1837 and brought it to its present standing. Toombs was first a U.S. representative and senator, becoming the first Secretary of State of the Confederacy, resigning to become a brigadier general. The state of Georgia purchased the house in 1970. Now it is open for tours. Stop number 24 is the Tarver Webster Wickersham home, 1819. Once a dormitory for the female seminary and also a home of Reverend Alexander Hamilton Webster. Stop number 25 is Wisteria Hall, circa 1795. Once home of Maria Randolph, descendant of Pocahontas, it used to face north. An addition was added so the front entrance could face south and a new road built in 1811. During the war between the states, Logan Blakely hid here, evading Union authorities. As a child, Woodrow Wilson spent summers here with his father, who was a minister. Wisteria Hall. Stop 26 is the Washington Historical Museum, circa 1835, a property of the city of Washington and open for tours. Inside the museum are valuable Confederate relics, records, and camp chests of Jefferson Davis left here when he fled from the Union Army. Stop 27 is Pleasant Shade, 1831, built by James Wingfield. In 1860, Reverend James Dunwoody, the well-known Presbyterian minister who officiated the marriage of the parents of Theodore Roosevelt, purchased this home and added the colonnade. Number 28 on our stop is where the Reverend John Springer was ordained as the first Presbyterian minister in Georgia in 1790 in the shade of a giant poplar tree about 200 feet east of the spot. Number 29 on our stop is the Farr Denner House, 1880, built by Marcus A. Farr, then purchased and restored in 1970 by David and Deborah Dennard, the current owners. Number 30 on our stop is the Cade Fortson Dennard House, built in 1910. It was the former home of late Ben Fortson, beloved Georgia Secretary of State for many years. Peacewood, built in 1790, contains hand-hewn lumber, massive cross-panel doors, and original locks and hinges. Number 32 on our stop is Belmont, built in 1790. It is the ancestral plantation of the Wingfield family. The wedding of Margaret Long to son of Governor Tolliver was here in 1806. Oaks, built in 1838, situated away from the street on the left, was built by Thomas Semmes, who helped organize St. Patrick Catholic Church. The first Catholic Mass celebrated in Washington was in this house in 1853. The Semmeses gave the land for the first Catholic Church to be built down the street. This is Mary Oaks. Number 34 is the Wingfield Blackman House, circa 1784, one of the oldest homes in town. The original land for this house was granted by King George III of England to George Walton, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Number 35 on our stop is the Catholic Cemetery. Once the site of Washington's first Catholic church, St. Patrick's, established in 1835. The graves of the nuns who ran the school on stop number 62 are seen here, along with the graves of the children who were in the orphanage. The earliest graves date back to 1848. 36 on our stop is Washington School. The central building was built in 1897 as the first public school. The Bolton Lumpsford Playhouse is in the gym to the left. Markers on the grounds are to Nancy Hart of Revolutionary War fame and Eliza Frances Andrews, botanist and first woman named to the International Academy of Scientists and author of the Wartime Journal of a Georgia Girl, 1864-65. Number 37 is the Victorian Cottage. In 1865, Union soldiers camped on this site. In 1883, General Robert Toombs deeded this lot to his granddaughter, Camille Dubois Colley. In 1884, the house was built, mirror image of the Dubois House on South Alexander Avenue. Number 38 is the Female Seminary, circa 1857. It's next to the old school and was one of the finest educational institutions for girls in the entire state of Georgia. Number 39 is the Colley Barksdale Thomas House on land originally granted to George Walton, bought in 1838 by Henry Colley. The Greek Revival colonnade was added by T.J. Barksdale in 1909. Fairfield, the Gilbert Alexander Wright House, 1808, was one of the earliest brick houses in upcountry Georgia. Wood portions were added later. This was the home of Confederate General Porter Alexander. The Women's Club is stop number 41. Built in 1814, it was moved to this location from the corner on Robert Toombs Avenue. Deeded to the Women's Club in 1970. Number 42 on our walking tour is Fort Washington Park behind the courthouse. It commemorates the site of Washington's origin. Fort Washington is the site of a stockade built by the family of Stephen Hurd, governor of Georgia, 1781. Cherokee and Creek Indians had ceded their land on June 1st, 1773, and the settlers from Virginia arrived in December 1773. And it was located here. And there's a small creek through the park down there. Number 43 is the Cedars, 1793. Original portion of the house was built by Anthony Pulliam. I'm not sure of pronunciation. John Bolton, a wealthy Savannah merchant, bought it in 1803 and enlarged it to be a summer home. Luxuriously Victorianized by Robert Sims in 1883. 44 on the Washington walking tour is the Wilkes County Courthouse, 1904. It is the fourth to be built and is located on the site of the old Georgia State Bank building, later known as the Hurd House, where President Jefferson Davis and his Confederate cabinet signed the last official papers and the Confederate government was officially dissolved. Circling the square to the right, just past the Welcome Center, is the Fitzpatrick Hotel, built in 1898, restored in 2004. Here in the square is a marker indicating the old inn site. The Stagecoach Inn, Scarborough's, housed the Confederate gold in its basement at the end of the war between the states. The commercial district surrounding the square is on the National Register. Each building has a plaque with a date and description of what the original building was used for. Our town square hosts many festivals and celebrates many achievements. 2020, we are honoring our graduating senior class with a picture of each senior in the county. Number 45 is the old jail, built in 1891. It is now privately owned and being restored. Number 46 is the Tupper Barnett House, built in 1832 by Dr. William H. Pope. Reverend Henry Allen Tupper, the noted Baptist minister and grandfather of the wife of General George C. Marshall, lived here many years and added the magnificent colonnade which surrounds the house. It is a National Registered Historic Landmark. Number 47 is the First Baptist Church, circa 1884. Established in 1827, the first pastor was Jesse Mercer, for whom Mercer University was named. It is also known for the beautiful sugar maple that has golden leaves in the fall. First Baptist Church. Number 48 is the May House, built in 1850. The original house is in the back, and the Victorian front was added after the war between the states. And there's the original 1850s cottage. Number 49 is New Haywood. 1887, it was built on the grounds of Judge Garnet Andrews Haywood. Owner T.M. Green's wife, Meta Andrews, whose father owned Haywood, was responsible for the state of Georgia selecting the Cherokee Rose as the state flower. Number 50 is the 1894 Inn, built by James Hines and was featured in the Hallmark Hall of Fame movie, Home Fires Burning. Number 50. Number 51 is Greens Grove. It was originally called Andrews Grove and led to Haywood, built in 1809, the former home of Judge Garnet Andrews and his famous daughter, Eliza Frances Fanny Andrews, the author of a wartime journal of a Georgia girl. The home was demolished by T.M. Green in 1892. Though Judge Andrews was against the war, Fanny and her sister Meta, the wife of T.M. Green, made the first Confederate flag that flew over Washington. Number 52 is the Irvin Harris House, circa 1874. It's one of the loveliest Victorian cottages in Washington. The second floor was added in 1913, with the only access being a hidden staircase. Number 53 is Magnolia Cottage, built in 1873. In 1892, the interior was redone by architect E.G. Lind, well known in the Southeast, also the architect for the Mary Willis Library. It was restored in 2006 by its current owners. Magnolia Cottage. Stop number 54 is the Planters Hotel, 1824. It was built as a stagecoach tavern and inn. In 1853, the site became a hotel. It is now a private residence. Number 55 is Pembroke, circa 1825. Named for the current owner's father, Pembroke Pope, the house has a widow's walk on top, which is an unusual feature on inland houses. On this property, supposedly once stood the poplar tree from which Polly Barclay was hung, the first woman to be hung in the state of Georgia, 1806. This is Pembroke. Originally called Freemantown and Wileyville, this section was developed for freed slaves, and by the turn of the 20th century had a thriving business district and the Hogue Academy, a black educational institution. Number 57, our stop, is Jackson Chapel AME Church, built in 1867. It is the oldest surviving church built by freemen. This is number 58, Springfield Baptist Church. It's an imposing brick building. Our history says it started in 1883 But on the wall, the cornerstone, it says established in 1868. The church was remodeled in 1977. Number 59 on our stop is the Reverend C.C. Reed House, one of the most elaborate of the Victorian cottages remaining in the area of Whitehall, formerly known as Freemantown and Wileyville. It is built for the prominent civic leader, C.C. Reed. Number 60 on the tour of Washington Wilkes is Rest Haven Cemetery. The old section is beautiful, with graves of some of our prominent citizens, including General Robert Toombs, Eliza Francis Andrews, E.M. Bounds, among others. It's a beautiful place to stroll and learn our local history. Stop number 61 on our map, Washington Plantation, now referred to as Sarah Green, circa 1828, has rarely seen Temple in the Wind's columns. Stop number 62 was the location at St. Patrick's Catholic Orphanage, Convent and School in 1876 until 1960s. The original building, 1797, was torn down in 1824, and the site became home of Jesse Mercer. Wilkes Academy, once here, was one of the first private schools chartered in the state of Georgia. The present brick building was built circa 1930 and is currently used by the Washington Wilkes Park and Recreation. Stop number 63 is the home of the late Dr. Fred Sessoms, 1907, in whose Victorian house remains his office set up ready for patients. Number 64 is Mark's Tabernacle Baptist Church, 1923. It had begun in 1898 under Reverend C.H. Holloway, who would be its pastor for 28 years. First established in Miss Sophia Mickens' store on Lexington Avenue, it soon moved into his church building, constructed on a lot donated by Mark Cooper Pope, hence the name Mark's Tabernacle. Stop number 65 is the Washington Wilkes Airport, located 5 miles west of town on U.S. Highway 78. Number 66 on our stop is the Callaway Plantation Complex, with Callaway family buildings from the log cabin dated circa 1785, gray house dated circa 1790, to this brick manor house completed in 1869, among some other buildings. Owned by the city of Washington and open for touring. Stop number 67 is a small park. It was near the site of the first printing of the Christian Index in 1833, which was Baptist. There's a marker here for Jesse Mercer. Number 68 is the Lane Cheney Lindsay House, circa 1820. The oldest part of this house was built from timbers of the Reverend John Springer's house and school at Walnut Hill. The house once faced Pope Street, which is to its left. Number 69 is the Hines St. Gardens Standard Barnett House. Not sure on the pronunciation of those names. Built in 1816. It was land set apart as the Washington Commons in the original charter. The land in front was a militia drill ground, where this house now stands. Number 70 is Poplar Corner, built in 1810 by Oliver Hillhouse Prince. In 1825, it was sold to Alexander Pope, a planter and lawyer who raised his 18 children here, remaining in the family until 1873. Dr. Robert Simpson purchased the house and added the columns. It is the only fully developed Bordeaux Arts classical revival structure in town. The Pope family, once again, owns this property. Number 71, Liberty Inn, circa 1793, is believed to be the oldest original house in the town of Washington. Number 72, First Methodist Church, 1910. The congregation here dates to 1786, making one of the oldest continuously worshiping Methodist congregations in America. Well, I hope you enjoyed my attempt at following the driving tour for historic Washington Wilkes. These maps can be picked up at the Chamber office on our square, also the Tourist Information Office, same place. Plus, the museums should all have copies if you wander in there. Everything was pretty easy to find, except for 2 locations. Number 54 was really on the corner of Robert Toombs and the side street. And then number 67 was in a little island in the middle of the road. Otherwise, it was a fun day and a half looking at everything in town. Thanks.